Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you all had a safe and blessed holiday. I hope you have a safe New Year's coming up. Make sure if you're drinking, I don't promote it. I don't drink myself very often, but if you do drink, make sure you get a designated driver or get an Uber, get a cab. Do not drink and drive this New Year's because it is going to be crazy out. But I was going to do a video earlier, actually, about the Trump Michigan thing because if you guys haven't heard, they decided in Michigan, they tried doing the same thing that they did in Colorado in Michigan. And Michigan's like, we can't touch it. We're going to let the people decide. So not only in Colorado are they trying to take Trump off the ballots, they're trying to take him completely out of the primary so he can't run at all. This is unconstitutional. This is illegal. Number one, nobody was charged with an insurrection. You can't hold something against someone that they weren't charged for, right? That'd be like going and speeding in a car and getting charged for a store robbery just because you were speeding. That doesn't make sense. You can't charge people for something or hold them accountable for something that they've never been charged with. Trump he was impeached for inciting an insurrection, but yet the impeachment was false. It all got taken away and he got found not guilty. You cannot hold somebody accountable for something that they did not do. If you go back and listen to Trump's speech in the beginning, right? He told everybody, make your voices heard peacefully. If somebody decides to do something, that is completely on them. It has nothing to do with him. But not only that, all the evidence coming out with all the tapes of the January 6th stuff, it's all showing that it's all been a bogus narrative by nothing but the demon rats and the deep state. And it's all true. It's all just been blown out of complete proportion just to play into the minds of you people. And I don't mean like, I'm just saying in the minds of us people, actually, I should say. And to play into trick our minds, because that's what the media does. They trick us about everything. So without further ado, let's get into this one. This has to do, like I said, with them trying to just keep him out of the election period. It's illegal, though.
All right, turning now to the race for the White House and the state legal challenges aiming to keep former President Trump off of primary ballots next year over allegations tied to January 6th. The Colorado Republican Party is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn a state ruling earlier this month that disqualified Trump because the state court found he violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which bars people who engage in insurrection from holding office. Meanwhile, Michigan's Supreme Court rejected a similar effort to remove Trump from the state's ballot. That court said it was not persuaded by the argument. To break it all down for us, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos. Danny, good morning to you. So let's start off in Colorado, the state.
Before we get into it, I wonder what their argument was. Was this their argument? I wouldn't doubt it.
GOP going to the Supreme Court about this. I think under the current terms, he will remain on the primary ballot during this period. What will Republicans argue to the Supreme Court if they decide to take the case? What will they argue to the Supreme Court?
They have a number of different arguments, one of which is that the president is not an officer within the meaning of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Recall that the Colorado lower court concluded that, yes, he committed insurrection, but no, he's not an officer within Section 3. Therefore, even being an insurrectionist, he would remain on the ballot.
Wow, and this is the liberal media telling you this because they have no obligation. Usually they would just lie to you. I'm surprised they're willing to tell us this.
The Colorado Supreme Court simply held opposite on the issue of whether he was an officer. The other argument they have, for example, and they have a few, is that Section 3 requires animating legislation. That sounds a little weird, but I'll give you an example. You're too young to remember Prohibition. I remember Prohibition. But you'll recall those amendments by themselves did not create Prohibition. There was a separate act of Congress called the Volstead Act that actually enacted Prohibition. So the question here is, does Section 3, does it by itself create this prohibition on an insurrectionist, or does it require Congress to enact some legislation, some further law to actually bring that section to life? And that's another argument the Republicans are making here. Interesting that both of those arguments can proceed even if Trump was deemed an insurrectionist after an evidentiary hearing at the Colorado's lower court, trial court.
But wait, here's my thing. Nobody was charged with an insurrection. You can't just say that somebody did something when they literally went to court for it and tried to get impeached for it and was found not guilty. By the way, the second impeachment, both found not guilty. We know why, because these demon rats are liars.
As far as the Supreme Court goes, I've never heard something exactly like this before. Do you think that they will take it up?
I think they're likely to take it up. I mean, if I were to give you percentages, they have to be in the 90 percentile, because not only that, you have other states arriving at different conclusions. Now, the Supreme Court can say, well, that's fine. That's the way federalism works. Those states have their own laws. They have their own systems. They decide who gets on the ballot. But in a federal national election of the president, that obviously implicates constitutional issues, federal law issues. So very likely, I think they're going to take it up. I mean, I would love to say absolutely, but I can't commit myself to that, because there's that tiny chance they might not.
Do they actually want to take it up, though? I feel like they might want to pass on it, as they have other recent things in the past.
Generally speaking, the Supreme Court will try to avoid deciding issues of state law if there are what are called adequate independent state grounds for the lower court's decision. However, in a case like this, because it implicates federal law, because it implicates the U.S. Constitution, likely they will have to take it up, even though they might express a preference for allowing something that exists on adequate state grounds to remain as it is.
Okay, now think about this, you guys. Think about this, right? They're trying to take him off of a ballot on a statewide thing, right? But this is a federal election, so this involves the entire country when it comes down to the primaries, when it comes down to 2024 in November, when we're all voting for the president, right? They're wasting Colorado payers' tax dollars right now, literally, by doing this just as a facade, just as a front. This is all something to distract us from something else that's really going on. Like all the money that we're giving to Ukraine, the money that we're getting ready to give to Israel. I don't know if we already gave it to them. It's just, this is all just a fake facade. This is all not real. They're literally wasting taxpayers' dollars for something that they can't do. You can't even do this. This is crazy.
Fascinating to follow. Michigan, let's talk about them. Different situation there. The request to remove
we get
Trump
to go
from that state's
Michigan
primary ballot. That failed. Trump actually reacted on social media saying Michigan has, quote, strongly and rightfully denied the desperate Democrat attempt to take him off the ballot. So what's the thinking for that legal decision and the other states who have sided with Trump on this?
The great state of Michigan!
To not disqualify him for January 6th.
This is a great example of how different state courts can arrive at different conclusions based on their own law and procedural differences. For example, in Michigan, there was no evidentiary hearing, and a Michigan Court of Appeals, the court below the Supreme Court, actually observed that they actually discussed the Colorado Supreme Court opinion. They said, well, look, that's a little different. They had an actual evidentiary hearing to decide whether or not Trump was an insurrectionist. We didn't have that here, so that is a distinction that has to be taken into account. The other thing is, but I mean, you have the Supreme Court, the Michigan Supreme Court concluding, or excuse me, the lower court, Michigan Supreme Court just sort of adopted it, but you have that court in Michigan concluding that this may not be what's called a justiciable question. There's an issue as to whether or not courts can even hear this issue, or if Section 3 is something that is really committed only to other branches of the government other than the judicial branch.
Justiciable, is that the word?
Justiciability and non-justiciability, yes,
wow,
exactly.
Learn something new from Danny every day. Also want to learn something new on this. Special counsel Jack Smith yesterday filing that the motion in Trump's federal election interference case to try to block him from talking about the conspiracy theories and making political arguments during that trial. How will that play out, and do we think that Trump will abide by it?
Yo, no lie, Jack Smith looks like he hangs out with Hunter Biden a lot.
Everyone knew this was coming. This is a major motion for the Jack Smith team, and it's really like a motion in limine. We make these motions all the time to try and prune the bonsai tree of trial before you get to trial, and this would be a major win if the government could get the court to preclude the defense from raising any of these political arguments. I'm being persecuted. The Biden administration is after me. Those would be central themes of Trump's defense. If they can preclude them and argue that they're simply not probative or relevant, then that's a huge win for the government.
Seems very hard to do to keep politics out of that.
Can't be done, I don't think.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Danny Savalos, thanks so much.
All right, think about this, guys. Think about this, right? Colorado decided they had enough evidence to keep Trump out, right? Keep Trump off the ballot. Michigan decided, like, no, there's not enough. So are we the divided states of America now? Because it's like rules in some places aren't the same when it's a federal election, right? This is an election that is the entire every state in the country is part of this election, right? I've seen so many different things like in 2020, right? I just seen a video earlier where a lady got caught. She worked in Washington D.C., right? She was a Democratic official or something in Washington D.C., and she voted in D.C. and Maryland, right? And only got fined $500 and is still allowed to be a government official, right? Think about this, right? Look at everything that Trump is going through right now because he said the election was stolen, when that's proof right there that this lady voted twice in 2 different states. Who's to say so many other people didn't do it? This is proof of election interference right there. And we're not allowed to say that. We get in trouble. We get demonetized. We get kicked off of platforms. We get everything done to us because we say the truth, and they don't like to hear the truth because everything is paid for. It's just crazy to me. It is really, really crazy. I don't understand it. I don't understand how people don't see it. I don't understand how people are not finally waking up. I know so many people who are just leftist liberals and they will not wake up. They do not care. And it's because they do not want to be wrong. I voted for Obama the first time. I regretted it 6 months into it. And I couldn't vote for him again. So the second time I didn't vote for him. But I also couldn't vote for Mitt Romney either because he's just the face of evil. And now looking back at that, I'm grateful that I had my own clear vision earlier in life, even though it wasn't fully clear. My vision was much clearer than I thought, and I realized things. And then when I seen Trump was running, my main thing with him was I said to myself, even before I heard him speak or anything, right? I said to myself, if Trump runs and if he gets on the ballot, I'm voting for him because he's rich, right? And he doesn't need to steal anything from us. And sure as heck, looking at it now, and then after, he got elected, hearing that he didn't take any money for being president, he actually lost money being president, funding his own campaigns, having different probably people not want to do business with him anymore, all the legal proceedings he's been going through, everything. It makes me respect him even more. And I'm glad that I chose him as a president. I voted for him the first time. He was the only president that I voted for out of the two because I could have voted for Bush the first time, but I don't think I was registered to vote. I was 18 at the time, but I wasn't registered to vote. So my first actual time voting was Obama, right? I voted for Trump first time, second time, and I'll vote for him a third time. I'd vote for him to just be our king. Why not? You know what I mean? And our country would probably be in such a better shape. But we got to follow democracy. It's just all crazy to me. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also, please make sure to check out these other videos. We're trying to get this channel going as big as possible. It'll really help out. Also, if you could maybe hit that subscribe, I really appreciate you stopping by. You guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.